Let's go. Thank you for having me here. So today's subject, we are going again to talk about, yes, Fabric screen. We're going to talk about how GenAI can be used to change the way content is delivered, and particularly the new user experience that you can create and you can offer to your users for accessing your content. Just a few words. So I am the founder and CEO of Free Topics. So Free Topics is a software vendor. We are a content delivery platform. We take care of reinventing the way your users, your stakeholders access the content that you create. So we are not operating upstream on the content authoring side. We are really downstream at the moment of you need to make that content available, accessible to your users. So this is what we do. So that's our mission. We help our customers, we help tech industries achieve this digital transformation in customer support, field service operation by better leveraging the knowledge that they create. So we work for small and large companies across the globe. So using our technology platform to change those operations. So we are going to talk about GenAI and how particularly GenAI can be used at this moment of delivery. I think this is pretty game-changing. Again, we're not going to talk about how GenAI can be used at the moment of writing content, generating content, helping you better manage your content, but really at the moment of content delivery. And I'm going to start with this curve that I like, which you can find that has been used by Dunning-Kruger to describe what is now well known as the Dunning-Kruger effect, which describes how people feel confident based on the knowledge they have about a subject. So that's an interesting curve because basically when you know nothing about a subject, you're not very confident, but then you start reading about it, and you're still pretty ignorant, but you have a high level of confidence. And then the more you read, the more you start understanding the complexity of a subject. Then you become more cultured, and the more you read, at the end of the day, you can become an expert about that subject. But as you can see in that curve, you're still sometimes less confident about the subject than less savvy people. So this is this confidence gap described in the Dunning-Kruger effect. So I like a lot this curve. And to tell you the truth, this is why I feel about this subject. So I've been reading enough to understand what it's about, but as well reading enough to start understanding that I don't understand anything about GenAI, especially because it's changing all the time and it's a very complex subject. And what is interesting as well is that this curve that you see here is the same curve that has been reused by Gartner for what they call the technology hype cycle. So you know that Gartner analyzes most of the technologies, whether they are specific or in a specific domain or generic, and they put all those technologies, products on those hype cycles, and they describe these different parts of the curve a bit differently. They said that at the beginning, you have what is called the peak of inflated expectations. So it's when the technology emerges and people have a lot of faith and start dreaming of that this technology can do anything. Then we realize that the technology may be a bit immature and it's more complex to use. So there's this phase that is called the trough of disillusionment. Then companies keep working on it, enhancing the technology until it reaches the plateau of productivity, which is usually when you start finding those technologies in your day-to-day life in all the products. And this is the Gartner's hype cycle for emerging technologies from last year. And what you can see is that everything about generative AI, AI-augmented and generative AI, is exactly at the peak of inflated expectations. So this is the moment where we all believe that it's magical, it's going to change everything, that everybody is going to lose his job, the world's going to be a better place, and so forth. But it's just before this trough of the disillusionment moment. And as you can see, for those two technologies, they are supposed to reach plateau within 2 to 5 years. So assuming this was an analysis from August 23, meaning that you can barely expect having something working really before mid-25, if not 26, 27, in terms of reaching plateau of productivity. So now if you ask my feeling about this, how do I feel, where do I feel AI is on the curve? I would say depends. I think it's more complex than one dot. First, because AI, generative AI as a technology is a fast-moving object. And if I take this analogy with quantum physics, if we consider AI is one particle, it's moving so fast that, as the Heisenberg principle tells us, we cannot tell where it is. It's moving too fast that we can really say, this is the state of GenAI. And if we consider that GenAI is a wave, according to this wave particle paradigm, then as a wave, state is the sum of all the subcomponents, like music. You know, you hear music, and the music is the sum of all fundamental harmonic. And it's only by analyzing all the subcomponents of what GenAI makes GenAI work in your product as you need it, that you can understand if it's mature or not. And the fact is that a GenAI project is made of numerous components. It's about your content, how mature your content is, what's the format of your content. It's about the large language models, search and embeddings computation capabilities. So about the prompts, agents, functions, training and evaluation data. There's a lot of subparts into this GenAI project that needs to be analyzed to understand what can be done, what is difficult to achieve, and where we are in terms of complexity and where we are in this maturity cycle. So that's a complex subject. I'm going to explain a few things now, show you a bit of a demo as well. But again, keep in mind that probably everything I say may be wrong in a few months or partly wrong in a few months, solved or not. So again, that's what makes it interesting as well, is that you have to spend like a day per day just to read what's new about this subject and test it. So, that's fun to see this technology evolving so rapidly. So instead of analyzing the technology, we are going to look at it from another perspective, which is what are the different scenarios where GenAI can be used in content delivery, and what can be achieved with GenAI in an easy or more complex way. So I've ranked these scenarios in 3 categories, ranging from complexity 1 to complexity 100. So you see it's an exponential scale because it becomes exponentially complex to achieve more with GenAI. So a few things are very easy to do, level 1. Then it becomes level 10, so 10 times more complex to move to the next 10 types of scenario, and then become a level 100 of complexity, meaning very difficult to achieve, 100 times more complex to achieve at productivity level for some of those use cases and scenarios. So let's start with level 1. What is easy to do and what works, which is pretty much what works today. It's mainly everything that is about transforming content on the fly. It's when you use generative AI and you take content and you say, this content, generative AI, make it this new content, extract something, do something. Few examples, easy to do. This is you're on the content itself, you're reading the content on a topic, on a page, on a chapter, on a document, and you can add features like create a summary, or extract parts, extract tools if it's a maintenance procedure, or if you have cut samples because it's a documentation about how to program something, how to use APIs, how to do something with your product. If it's a software part of your product, you could have code examples, and then with these code blocks, you could attach features like, please explain the code, or can you translate this code example which has been provided in Python? Can you give me this example in Java or C# or Rust or whatever programming language I prefer as a user? That could be as well, why not translating content, even though we'll have a demo of that. Generative AI may not be the best tool for translating content, but it works. So why not try to use it? So you see here, it's really about, I have the content at hand. I'm in front of this content, and I can take a piece of content and ask an LLM to do something with that content, which is basically, I have the content, I write a prompt, which is in fact a prompt template, okay, which is the instructions of what to do with that piece of content. Please summarize, please translate. Then you can merge the content you are looking at as a user with the prompt template that makes it a full prompt that can be 1 page, 10 pages at the end, depending on the content size. You send that to the LLM, you hand it over to the LLM of choice, and then you get a reply from the LLM that you can display. I will give you a live example at the end of that, but imagine you're on the content, you have a summarize button, you click, and this is what it does. It takes the content of that page, embeds that content inside a prompt template, give it to the LLM like ChatGPT, OpenAI, or Azure OpenAI, or Anthropic Cloud, or Google Gemini, whatever you want. And that LLM will apply the prompt, apply the instructions of the prompt to the content to generate a reply that you can then display to the user. So what does it require to make that work? Basically, it's about writing the prompt first. So you need some prompt engineering skills. That can be very basic prompts in some cases. That can be more subtle, more complex. You need a test protocol as well for measuring the performance, because if you write, you need to achieve something like extract parts and tools. You can write the prompt in multiple ways that can go from 2 lines of prompt to half a page of instructions, and maybe just by changing, and that's maybe one of the still a difficulty of this scenario is depending on how you write the prompt, you may get a different result. And sometimes just changing 1 or 2 words in your prompt leads to different results. So if you want to fine-tune the prompt itself, adapt the prompt, refine your prompt, you need a way to test if one prompt behaves better than another one, and you need to automate that as well. So you need to create reference data set, sets of prompts, and find a way to check which result seems better than another one. So you need a test protocol for that. The other thing that you need is select the LLM that will be used for applying the prompt, running the prompt. That can be generic or specific LLM, that can be trained one or fine-tuned one if it's specific, can be a large one, can be a small one. The impact doesn't impact on quality, speed, but cost as well. So the bigger the LLM, normally the better the result. If you take a generic LLM like the latest ChatGPT 4 or 3.5 or before, maybe enough. So you have to check that. But if you just look at the cost, for example, on Azure, if you go Microsoft Azure and you check the cost difference from ChatGPT 3.5 on Azure and ChatGPT 4 on Azure, I think there's about like 50 times more expensive using ChatGPT 4 because it's a bigger model. So is it worth spending 50 times more money if you get roughly the same quality for summarizing content, and plus it can be slower as well. So this needs to be checked and validated as well. Same here, you need a test protocol, you need tools for measuring the performance, the speed, the non-regression of the LLMs that you choose, create a reference data set, and probably you need to redo that every month or so when the LLM that you have chosen is updated, because you know that those LLMs are regularly adapted by the vendors. So again, maybe it was working well in January and then you are in April and doesn't work as expected because something has been changed in the model itself. So that's part of the job when you do these even easy use cases, scenarios, to check, write the prompt and check, select the LLM, but as well monitor that over time so that you see that it's not degrading and you still have the performance that you need. So this is scenario level 1. So get the idea. We are the core idea being that we are just on a piece of content, and we are just applying a prompt to that piece of content. Level 10, which is the next scenario, is when you need first to find the content itself. You first need to run something, a search, to find the information. And that's where we use generative AI for the findability, increasing the findability stage, because level 1 was basically about increasing the readability. Okay, the moment, the experience at the moment of reading content. Now we move to the moment of finding, searching, and finding content. So that's level 10. There are multiple ways to do it. Some are easier, so it's more like level 5. Some are a bit more difficult, like level 15 or 20. So something that is easy is augment classical search. So if you have keyword search engine, like Google on the web, and that was Google before GenAI. So you were running a query keyword based. Here the query is SAML versus OAuth, which is basically a question about two single sign-on protocols. And I have search results provided by Google. And a few months ago, Bing said, we can do better than that because I'm partnering with ChatGPT. I've put 10 billion in ChatGPT. I have access to the technology. So what I'm going to do is, before giving you the list of results, I'm going to inject dynamically at the top of the page a summary of what's inside the behind the pages, the links that I have below. So see that as someone clicking on the first 3, 4, 5 links that is on the search result page, reading that page, those pages, what's behind that, and then writing a summary so that probably you get a result, the reply here, and you don't even have to click on the links to get to the content itself. So it's dynamically, and that's what it explained here, by being, it's summarizing the content that is provided as search results so that you don't have to go to the content. Which, by the way, if you look at it, is a huge, from a user experience, it's a big change because maybe you don't have to go to the content itself, but from a business model as well, it's huge. And many websites complain because before that, Bing or Google were giving traffic, were leading traffic to you because people were running searches and then they were clicking on links. And if you were well positioned on the first page, you had a chance that people would click on the link leading to your page, and then you were getting traffic from those web search engines. But if those search engines give the reply directly here and people stop clicking on the links, then you stop having traffic. So that is a bigger change than we see. It's more like the technological change that we see here is a change as well for many websites on the business model, if you are an info provider, or on for marketing, because then you may lose some of the leads that you were gaining from web searches. So interesting. Another subject, but still interesting. So that's one thing to do. Back to the subject here. This is how to use GenAI to augment classical search, keyword-based search. So the existing search that you have, you can imagine that you put an AI component in your page that captures the search result list, reads the content, goes to the content, reads the content, and then adds a summary of this content in your search result page. But this is usually not what we have in mind when we think about changing the findability. Most of the time, what you have in mind and what we see is you'd like something like a bot or something like that that answers questions directly on your content. It's like people, instead of running keyword search and having links to content and a summary of maybe a summary of this content behind those links, maybe you have in mind something that is a bit more sophisticated, which is natural language search queries and the reply directly provided here, maybe giving links to the reference content as well, but mostly trying to reply directly to the user's question. So you see, it looks the same, but in fact, it's quite different than the previous scenario I've shown you, because here we were just enhancing an existing search technology in place, keyword search technology, by doing dynamic summary of content. So we're in between level 1 and level 10. You see what I mean? It's easier. Here the questions are natural language questions, and we need to provide a reply. This is why it's level 10. So how do you achieve this thing here, like being able to reply to questions? So the key point is that LLMs are generic. meaning that they are trained on billions of pages of content that are maybe part of your website has been used for that, part of your tech doc has been used for training those LLMs. So they know a bit about your content, or maybe they don't if your content is secured, gated. But they know as well about the products of your competitor. So for the same question, maybe the generic LLM, if you just ask this question to, I don't know, ChatGPT, you go to ChatGPT and ask a question about your products, very specific, maybe the reply would be something that is not totally applicable to your products, but the products of your competitors, and which is a problem anyway. And you can control exactly the quality of the reply. So what happened there, because everybody understood that months ago, like 12 months ago, and then everybody started thinking about, well, then we should train the LLM by adding our content into an LLM. That could be training from scratch. That could be taking a generic LLM and adding your content to it. Takes time, takes money. What LLM to train? A large one, a small one. Usually, if you start retraining an LLM, you start with a small model, like 8 billion parameters, 70 billion, 50 billion parameters. But then you lose, if you do that, you work with a very small model, you lose the accuracy and the sophistication of those large models like ChatGPT that have hundreds of billions of parameters. So that's the problem. If you start training, maybe you make it more specific to your content, but you work with a less capable LLM, and you may end up having bad results anyway, even though it's trained. Plus, training an LLM is super complex, or fine-tuning an LLM as well, using PEFT, so performance efficiency fine-tuning with low rank adaptation or stuff like that. It's super complex, because what people don't realize is when you train a model, it also forgets part of it was knowing before being trained. So it's like you create blind spots, and it's very difficult to know what part of what the LLM knew before being retrained or fine-tuned, the knowledge that has been lost, that may be critical as well. So the consensus is that basically we shouldn't go that way. We shouldn't go the way of training, retraining, fine-tuning generic LLMs. It's too complex, it's not necessary. And this is where people invented something that is now well known. So I wrote those slides a few months ago. Now I think you've heard about what is called RAG, which is basically retrieval augmented generation, which is basically taking a generic LLM, small or big, run internally or run by a vendor on the web, like ChatGPT on Azure, ChatGPT by OpenAI, Anthropic Cloud, Google Gemini, Meta Llama 3 that you can run if you want, if you have a bit of money, anything like that, and very generic. And then at the moment of querying, you add knowledge to the LLM dynamically at query time. So this is what it's called RAG. It's when you query the LLM that you give LLM the knowledge it needs to have to reply to the question. So that's the idea. Start with a query. Remember the example, I'd show you that live, how high can the drone fly? You have this first step, which is we need to find the knowledge that is supporting a reply to that query. What is the relevant knowledge that we have in the company to reply to that question? That can be 1 page, 10 pages, 20 pages of content. I'm talking pages so that you have an idea, physical ID. That can come from many sources. That can be all the knowledge needed to reply to the question can be scattered in 20 pages from 5 different applications and silos, whatever. You get that content, and then you end up being pretty much in the same stage as level 1, which is now that you have content, 1 page, 10 pages, 100 pages. You take a prompt template, you merge that content with the prompt, you send it to the LLM, and you get the reply. So you see that's just an additional step compared to what I've shown you for level 1 in level 10, which is we need first to identify the knowledge, because we're not acting on knowledge that we are reading as a user. We're asking a question. So from that question, we need to find the content, and with this content, we can build the prompt. And the prompt itself, when it's about question answering, now you inject the query of the user and the knowledge, and you send it to the LLM. So basically simplifying, the prompt itself, the prompt template itself is very simple. It's like, hey, you are a support agent or an expert about that subject. This is the question of the user, inject the question. And this is the knowledge that you need to reply, inject 10 pages of content. Please reply to that question. And if you can't find the knowledge, or if you don't see, blah, blah, say you don't know. That becomes the full prompt. You see the prompt that you build dynamically. So there's a template, you inject the query, you give the knowledge, you send it to the LLM. The LLM reads that and basically is pretty much able now, good LLM is able to reply to the question by reading the content that is provided dynamically, assuming that you have provided enough content, the right content, not too much content, which becomes the tricky part. So that's the idea of what is called RAG. What is interesting here is that, again, the first part of the process, which is finding the relevant knowledge, building the prompt, all that can be run inside your company. And so the LLM you don't have to send your content before that anywhere else. If you have sensitive content, that can be, all this can be run inside the company. And it's just dynamically at query time that you provide the LLM with just in the prompt, with just the knowledge that it needs in the context. So the context is the prompt. And then you get a reply, meaning that I say outside for the LLM, if you have a provider that gives you enough privacy, confidentiality guarantee where you're good, or even if you have super sensitive content, you could even imagine running the LLM internally on the hardware that you have or that you rent. So everything then would be sort of inside. But the idea being that you use here a generic LLM that knows nothing about your content and that forgets everything. Once the LLM has replied to the question, it does not learn about with your content. So your content remains something like confidential and private. So here, why is it level 10 and not level 1? But basically, it's about finding the content itself. The complexity is identifying the part of the content in your knowledge set that contains everything needed for replying to that question. So the question can be something simple, like, can you give me how to install this product, how to change the toner cartridge, which is maybe not a document, but more like a few steps in a procedure in a document. But that can be something way more complex in terms of question. We'll get back to that. What is important here is that classical search engines are quite bad at identifying content or finding the content when the query is a natural language query, like a long phrase like that. Classical keyword search engines are good when the query is few keywords only. So you need another type of technology for that, which is called semantic search. So it's not about technology today, but think maybe you've heard about embeddings, vector database. So it's everything you need for running searches, what is called semantic searches, which means finding content based on natural language queries. But the point being as well that semantic search is not good if the query is short. So usually you need to mix and match those two technologies, which is called hybrid search. And you have to do things like re-ranking and all this. So even this, even there, it looks like simple finding content that applies to a question. But in fact, this is a super difficult thing. It's a very active field of research. You have 1 to 3 research articles per day on the subject. People are trying super complex, super sophisticated methods to achieve good retrieval. The retrieval phase, which is finding the content, is complex. I know many companies that have tried, run projects and did it a bit naively and ended up with bad results. One pitfall, for example, being that not all your content should be used dynamically, because depending on the profile of the user, that user may have limited access to some of the content, so you cannot use any knowledge. So it means as well that you need to apply security rules to content when you do semantic search. You have to apply metadata for making for using content that is contextual to the product itself. So there are a few challenges here as well. But honestly, done well, it works. It works quite well. If you have good RAG part, the good retrieval part, then the LLM are quite good once they are provided with the right, assuming the LLM is provided with a good prompt and the right set of content for replying, assuming again the knowledge exists, because if the knowledge does not exist, there's no way you can reply. But LLMs are pretty good. And then you get very good results. Which leads us to level 100, which is real complex any question answering. I mean here when you can ask almost any question, again, assuming the knowledge exists somewhere in your company in the documents, but it may be really scattered in tables, databases with multiple formats, and you may need to combine 5 different documents for answering a question with taking into account very specific rules and context. So it's like, what is the max pressure for this hydraulic circuit, blah, 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 multiple questions in the same question, and all these sort of more complex things. It's more like being an expert assistant than just replying to a question. Okay, you see the difference here. Again, how does it work, assuming the information exists somewhere? It's basically everything I've shown you before at its best, plus more. It's RAG done perfectly. And then what appears to be the way to go now is using multiple LLMs, which is called agents. So agentic RAG, it's also called. So it's like having multiple LLMs working together in combination, talking to each other, trying to go from one question to decomposing that question into multiple steps. So then different agents may handle different parts of the sub-questions, gather content, merge that content, revalidate the content, then another LLM steps in and goes, okay, I'm going to do this part of the question. Then you may put a fourth or fifth or 10th LLM that then will come and say, I can validate if you are replying correctly or not. So you have LLM validating other LLMs. So that becomes super complex chains and assembly of agents LLMs, which are called mixture of experts. For example, you can do LLM switching, LLM pipelining. So that is almost, there's a bit of black magic for the moment, a bit of science and art at the same time. And again, it's pretty new. I mean, all this started a few months ago only. People are still trying things, and there's no real. RAG has become pretty stable now. I mean, still very active from a research perspective, but I think we have sort of a consensus on what to do and how to do it to achieve good results. I think here, everything that is about using agents and multiple LLMs, still a bit like very, very early stage on the discovery phase. So that's the idea. So probably I wouldn't promise any of your managers, top management, asking to do something that you could achieve expert assistance and reply to any type of question. I think that's out of scope, out of reach today. I think, honestly, what can be decently achieved is what I've shown you: transforming content, enhancing the search experience, replying to questions that are not too complex, and that's where it ends on something that can be put to production right now. There's one use case that I like, which is a bit on the edge, and that's for which we have had good results so far, and we are going to do more research this summer on the matter, which is how to augment support agents. So it's a very business-oriented use case. Because basically, if you look at it from a process perspective, a support agent is a proxy between a question and the knowledge of the company. Okay, so maybe the difference here being that your support agent has access to different silos that are not online, may in some case then reach out to specific people if the knowledge does not exist. But again, let's take for granted that you have invested in tech doc, you have enough knowledge in your company, different silos maybe, but you have 3 topics, meaning that you have one knowledge hub because all the content that is needed has been unified from those different silos to create this unified repository of information, and that your support agents can read that. So what is interesting here is, why can't we use AI to pre-generate reply to the cases and maybe only use the agents for validating, fine-tuning, adapting the reply before submitting, so that there's a sort of a gateway here. But that's the idea. Can we augment and streamline the process of replying to queries using AI? So we've tried that. We started 18 months ago. So this is from 18 months ago. We took real cases from our database. So that was a specific tool we wrote at that time. And you could only enter the ticket number here, the case number, and that was retrieving the query from the help desk tool. This is a real question here. And then that was the reply generated by AI, and the source, the links to the doc, that was the knowledge in 3 topics that was used for generating that reply. So I won't dig into that further here, but it works. The reply is very good. Then next tickets, read the next one, 2794 now, question by Teradata on one of our connector. Interestingly, the reply generated by the bot even contains a bit of code. So it's like, not only was the bot, the GenAI, able to reply properly to the question, but had even provided an example on what to do. So it's pretty amazing here. So we integrated that for real in our service desk tool that was Jira at that time. We've changed since then, but you see that was in production. So when we had a ticket from a user, the chatbot, the bot was immediately generating the first reply that was still internal, and then the support agents were able to check, validate, adapt, edit the reply, but it was way faster than starting from scratch. So we had quite good results, including very good surprises. So this is, we have few French customers, not that much, like 3. And one day we found a ticket that was in French from that French customer, but you have to know that we have no content in French. It's all in English. And quite amazingly, the bot, even though the query was in French, the bot was able to understand the query and generate a reply. The reply is in English because the prompt didn't say reply in the same language as the query. So by default, the prompt reply in the same language as the content itself, but it works. So you see, you can do this sort of, for me, that was sort of a haha moment, because oh my God, it means that you can automate reply to cases regardless of the language in which the query is, well, the ticket is opened by the customer, even though you don't have knowledge in that language. And that, for me, that is game changer. So for us, we saw that as a huge opportunity, and I think that's probably one of the biggest use case we see for, and we are working on, because again, really, it was helping a lot, reducing time to handle tickets by 50%, at least when it was really the sort of cases where it's about how to do something, and that was described in the product. It's helping a lot how to ramp up new agents, because instead of reading questions, then spending hours reading the doc, they can just use the pointers to the links to the doc itself, check the reply, and more like read the doc, check the reply, check the query, and say, oh yeah, it's good and it's not good, and sort of continuous learning, continuous training. So it's a new way to ramp up new agents, new support agents with these sort of tools. Arriving at this point, I must say that we are working now on, I've shown you those use cases. I will give you a very rapid live demo in a few minutes. But what is interesting here is that we are now starting to measure the efficiency of everything. Initially, the first months, from a few months ago, the point for us was to imagine the use cases, then implement the use cases, like summarize, reply to queries, do this QA, things, implement augmented support agents. So we have started implementing everything, and now we are in a phase where we are making that available to our customers, and we are asking them to try and test, and we are trying to collect feedback from our customers on how good it is or not, because as I said, it also depends on the quality of your content, the prompts. So everything we've done so far was on our content using our prompts. So so we are not now sort of generalizing this test phase and trying to gather feedback from our customers on the quality, on the efficiency, on the improvements they get. So probably the next webinar we'll give on that subject by the end of this year will be about results, real results from customers having tested, having implemented these or other use cases. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. One more thing, no, 2 slides here, I skipped that. One more thing for me, again, one thing that I find even more important than the technology, it's not the LLMs, it's not what I describe, it's about the UX. What I find something that we have overlooked in everything we've done so far is how do we bring that to the user? How do we reinvent the UI and the UX we provide so that it really leverages GenAI, at least if it works, which is we are in this moment. Because you see, for example, if you add to content, you remember this screenshot I showed you initially, which was summarize, but if you say summarize, translate, explain, show me this, show me that, you start adding buttons everywhere in the UI for each action that could be done on content. It's like a bit overloading the UI, and maybe we need something else than just adding more buttons. So we have to think about how we want to put that, make that available to our customers. And another thing, when I was preparing that talk, that struck me, I was using this Bing thing, so same SAML versus auth, sorry. And then there was a chat, and I asked the same question, and just getting the reply here took 25 seconds. So 25 seconds to get 5 lines, it's a bit frustrating. I will show you that in a moment in demos. So it's not us, it's the LLM, the speed of the LLMs. And particularly as a user, when you know that you're just looking for a document, a procedure, meaning a direct access to something you know exists, is there somewhere, which is the 5 steps of how to do something. You don't care about writing a long phrase, clicking on a button, waiting 20 seconds, that something rewrites something and then gives you a link to something. You want to type the few keywords that you know are good to reach to that content. Then you have a link, you click, and then up 2 seconds later, you own that content. So you see, think that GenAI is good, but it's not everything. So we have to be careful as well, not to feel that it's going to replace everything. So we have to not only validate the use cases and the accuracy and the quality of what it gives, but as well when and where we make it a tool for the user, so that there's no frustration for our users. And again, probably the next step will be as well, when you think about asking questions in plain text just for solving a problem, who wants to write? I mean, that's where probably we'll need to rethink the fact that we are typing and maybe we'll be talking to, especially in field service situation. Field technicians may have an earbud in their ears, and then they can talk to their device, get answers. So there's probably many things to be reinvented here. And I think that's pretty exciting to see that with this already valid technology that we have, not talking about what comes next and what will reach maturity in the next months, we may still be in a position where we have to think on what is the experience we want to give to our users. So that was for, oh my God, time flies by. I will give you an example of a few things we've done in 3 topics in 1 minute as well. What we have done in 3 topics, what we have implemented is basically, this is complex drawing with a lot of boxes, which is basically what it means doing GenAI from an architectural perspective. So you have your applications, whether it's your TechDoc website, whether it's your help desk tool or whatever it is, you have your application, you want to make it LLM enhanced, augmented, then you need to be able to talk to those LLMs, which are at the lower part of the drawings, and then you need something in the middle that connects your apps with the LLMs, with the models, with the query, with the content. So this is what we do. We sit in the middle. We first have implemented in 3 topics this semantic search capability, which is being able to retrieve content with natural language queries, which is computing the embedding, storing that. So we do all that in 3 topics. We don't rely on external services so that your content remains private and confidential. So this is what we have added. Not only do we provide in 3 topics the keyword search engine that was already there, but we have added the semantic search engine based on embeddings. So it's a new type of index. And what is important, again, because this is a major problem for many companies that have tried to do RAG pilot, they lack metadata, they lack security rules that are applied consistently across the different types of search engines on the content. So this is what we provide, as well as prompt management, connecting to LLMs, even sometimes running the LLM. So we've done a lot in 3 topics to streamline the usage and all this. So what I'm going to do now is stop sharing my screen here and probably get to this and now share this screen, this other screen. Share screen 1. Oh, okay. I don't know what you see. Oh yeah, okay, should be good. So rapidly, this is a demo website where we have a fictitious company called DroneLeaf that we have created, so which does drone for last mile delivery. So again, a fictional company. We have created content for that, a doc website for that, and this is the doc website of that company. And let me see if I open here something like this content. So imagine it's your website, your content. You see what you can do, for example, is start adding interactions like summarize this page. So I'm on a page, whatever page means, can be the entire book, can be just one topic, can be a chapter, and you can add this sort of interaction, summarize the page. So, and you see here it's real time, you see that it's level 1. What this button does, it takes the content, well, talks to the 3 topics architecture, says, I'm on that page, this is the content I'm on. I'm a summarize button, so can you do something, take that content and apply the prompt that goes with me, that goes with this button. So it takes the content, merges that into a prompt, send it to the LLM, and then we get the reply. And you see the reply streamed back live from the LLM. The way it works, again, is super simple. In fact, it's really what I've shown you. You see in the admin UI, we have the generative AI menu. We have created, you can create as many prompts as we want. So we have a prompt, we call that AI profile called summarize. And if you edit it, this is what we've done. You see the prompt, the template, the prompt itself is super basic. It's we could even make it 1 line. You are a powerful tech writer, blah, blah, blah. You should summarize this content in a short text form. That's it. So we could say 2 lines, we could say make it a paragraph, make it 1/10 of the original content. So you can, whatever you write here would be done by the LLM. And you see here, this is the placeholder for the content itself. So when you activate the prompt, as I did on clicking on summarize, it's taking the content, taking that prompt, replacing this placeholder with the content of the page, sending it to the LLM, which means that if I change the prompt, like, and make it an 8-line poem, that should change the behavior and the result of what I get, because the result, again, is just driven by the prompt, not by the technology. This is just pipes, but at some point, what the LLM does is what your prompt tells the LLM to do. So if I save that, if I go back to this same document, how delivery works, and now I say again, summarize, then I got a poem, okay, 8-line poem, because the prompt is different, so it's all dynamic. Well, we can do things that are a bit more interesting than writing poems. Let's take a maintenance guide, for example. And if you take a maintenance guide, you can add other interactions because it's dynamic. You know, the UI knows it's a maintenance guide, metadata driven. And then you can add interactions like show me the parts, show me the tools. Imagine it's 20 pages of content. I have to prepare my toolbox and my truck for tomorrow. And or I go shopping before that, and I need to make sure that I have everything needed for running this operation, so I can ask the LLM to extract that. So maybe today you do that by maintaining ref tables or tables somewhere in a section of your content where you list all the parts, all the tools that are in a procedure, but it's tedious to do. When you change the content, you have to revise that. Plus, if you reuse content that does not work. So here, you don't have to do that anymore. That becomes a live interaction with the content, and you just ask the LLM, read that, show me the parts, show me the tools. And again, it's pretty much the same button as the summarize. The only difference is, in fact, what's in the prompt. And you see the prompt itself here, we maybe extract part and tools. And that's a bit a bigger prompt, but it says, you are a field technician, blah, blah, blah. You know about parts, you know about tools. Read the content, extract parts, extract tools, make it a list. And if there are no parts or no tools, just say there is nothing, don't invent, preventing this bit of hallucinations, like instructing the LLM. So that's it. So, that's what it takes to create this. So we are level 1 here, works pretty well. Live running a search now, Propeller. Okay, run a search. So you see here, I got results. You remember what I told you, it's keyword search still, but you can add this dynamic summary of results. So here, instead of putting in on top of the search result list, you have to click. It's just a UI thing. And I'm asking, too long didn't read, I'm asking the LLM to read all the links, the content behind those links, and make a summary so that I don't even have to click. Okay, it's about this, that, and that, how to replace, assemble Propeller, blah, 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 troubleshooting issues. So very simple. But it doesn't seem, but even in that page, there are a few things that are GenAI driven, like you need this refine your search, the list of keywords that you can add to the query itself is in fact generated by an LLM. What it does here, we're giving the LLM the query, the content that is in the first, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 first documents, and we say, this is the content that replies to this query. This is the query itself, Propeller. Do you see other keywords that could be useful to add to the query to make it more specific? The prompt says something like that, really. So, and if you click, it's just adding the keywords to that query. And then you can go on, and then you can say, oh, replacement, Propeller replacement, and it goes again and again, and then it generates new keywords. And again, this is nothing programmatic. You can imagine having developed a super complex algorithm or something like that. Not even. In fact, we use for that suggested keyword. You see, that's a prompt that we have written. And says, you are a search engine. It's fun. So blah, blah, blah. This is the user query. So those are the keywords. This is the content. The doc excerpt is some content from the search results. And please create suggestions, search suggestions based on blah, blah, not containing the same keyword. Don't explain your choice. Provide 3 suggestions, blah, blah. So that's a prompt that achieves what I've shown you on the screen. So again, that's pretty interesting because you can do whatever you have in mind, which is about, you've got content, what can we do with that? We can extract, create graphs. We have dynamic graph creation where we do crazy stuff. Another thing I wanted to show you, I have it here as well, but, is let me switch my profile to French, not bad, not wrong. Okay, being in French, saying I'm French and going again to this content. Now the system knows that the content is in English, but my UI is in French, so there's a gap. So then we have a button that appears dynamically here and that says, please translate. So that the button appears just because my user preferred language is not the same as the content, but I have only content in English here. If I click, So we are sending this topic to the LLM, which is translating live. So again, it's just to show you that you can use LLMs for translating. It's just a prompt. We take the content, we merge that into a prompt, and the prompt says, please translate in dollar language, which is my UI language I have selected at one moment. So for sure, opening like this pop-up is not super fun. So you can do things that are a bit different. I have one here. If I open that document, I'm another portal just to show you. So let's open this document. And so you see here, you can do things like translating and putting things side by side. So you can do on-the-fly translation, keeping the source format, which is HTML here. We even keep the link, we analyze the link, we keep the link, we write the links on the fly, so that's flat content, and the user can compare the two results and say, okay, this is the source language, this is my translated language, and they can check. So the links are still valid. I click on, you can see send feedback if it's not good. So you see it works. So the UI can be adapted if you want to keep both languages, source and new language. You can make it a tab, you can make it side by side. So it's just a UI choice. But what I want to insist on here, you see it was pretty slow, in fact. So it's that's interesting. But again, so let me click on, you can click on the link, go to the next thing, ask for translation, or we could automatically trigger translation. But you see, it's not very fast. So imagine you have something that is like the equivalent of 10 pages that would take ages to be translated. I'm not sure users would like this experience. So we need to think about it when we think translation. But again, depends on the LLM you use, how much you want to pay, how big the LLM. But again, LLM being able translating in many languages with good quality are usually quite large, quite heavy LLMs, very large language models like GPT-3.5 minimum, GPT-4, very expensive, quite slow. So I wouldn't recommend necessarily using LLMs for translation, but just to give you an idea, it works. So imagine here, instead of querying an LLM, we should query a machine translation service that is way faster and that could be trained on your content, and we could give the same thing here, faster and cheaper. Last but not least, last example, you remember question answering. So here again, same content, we are back on drone lift. The content is about last mile delivery drones. And then that's the use case where you ask questions. So you can say, how many drone types do you sell? Oops, well, point, not question mark, okay. And 3 drone types, okay. So, but you see something interesting if I make the same. That was the question on the slide. How far can the drones fly? Up to 30 kilometers, okay. How far can the medium drone, because there are 3 drones, the medium drone fly? 5 miles. So you see, it depends on what document. In some cases, it's kilometers. Some cases, it's miles. So it works. All the other replies are right. I don't know why. Usually, you do have. So you see, medium drone can fly up to, and you can say the small drone fly. So works pretty well. Yeah. Oh, we have the result. Normally we have the result. So here for small drone, you see the reply is different. It's 200 feet high. So works quite well. So this is the rack part. I don't know why it was not displayed before. And you see it gives you the link to the source content. And you see that's true because low, medium, high, low altitude is 200 feet, 500 feet, 1,000 feet. You see all the numbers. It's not a table. It's just phrases. So the LLM is good enough so that when you provide the LLM with this page and a query, the LLM knows where to look at, makes the difference between a small and a large drone, even it's more like long phrases, and can reply to the question. So can achieve decent results in question answering, assuming that the knowledge is there, again, becomes more complex, or sometimes better, sometimes lesser in quality when you have complex tables. Tables can be a challenge for LLMs to analyze. It's something very visual that fits well to human, but more difficult to LLMs. If the source content is PDFs, that becomes a bit more complex. So usually structured content has an edge when it comes to getting good results with AI applied to content delivery, and particularly to replying to questions. So this is part of the things that you have to take into account when using this technology. But what I wanted to show you today is really, there are many, many things that you can achieve today. Again, technology is mature. That's easy to achieve as long as you have a CDP like free topics. It takes minutes or hours to do. I would be just one thing. Again, technology is evolving. Many use cases, quite a large number of use cases are well achievable today, but make sure you don't overpromise to your management, particularly when it comes to question answering. I think there's still a bit of work and technology maturity to be done, to be achieved, especially for answering complex questions. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and I can answer to your questions as well. Almost past the hour. I'm sorry for that. So yeah. So do you have questions? Where do I see the questions? For the moment, there are no questions. Okay. So maybe nobody hears me, in fact. It was just you and I, Trish, today. You know, sometimes you speak and you have no feedback, no nothing. So
it's funny sometimes. It is that way.
Okay, everybody's asleep. Maybe, I don't know. No question, really? Oh my God. That was clear. Have you tried? Have you done something? Can someone share something? Please reply. Feel alone. No?
Oh, there you go.
Oh, there we have.
Yep.
Where are questions? Oh, I have to open that again. Okay, yes. Can we connect free topics to translation memories? It's a roadmap. It's going to be the case. It's not to translation memories. It's going to be to a machine translation service. Because for us, talking to a machine translation service or to an LLM is pretty much the same. We send content, we get a reply back. So it's just like, instead of telling the LLM with a prompt, natural language prompt, please translate in French or please translate in German. It's more API driven, but that's pretty much the same. So that's on the roadmap. But yeah, that's the idea. Because really, the first test we did were, as I've shown you, LLMs are very slow at translating. So that may not be the right way to go, even though it works. Yes, I love this question. Thank you, Anna. How does well-structured documentation contribute positively to this solution? It's huge. Honestly, it's huge. The difference between using, let's say, PDFs, okay, and structured content, it's like almost you start with PDF, it's close to impossible to achieve. It becomes level 10, what should be level, or it becomes level 50, what should be level 10 for doing a reply to questions like that. Replying to questions becomes super complex, typically because when you have a PDF, what people do when they have PDFs, flat, unstructured content, they flatten the documents, they extract just the text flat from the PDFs, okay? They lose all the structure, all the semantic, and they create chunks of content regardless of the structure, regardless of the semantic of the content. Because when you compute embeddings, you compute this sort of index on content 10 line by 10 line. You chunk that into virtual paragraphs that are of 10 lines of content. And when you run the search, you try to identify which chunk of content applies to the question. and it can be anywhere in the PDF, can be across pages. So it's messy. Plus, you don't have metadata in the PDF. You lose the metadata, so you lose the context, so you don't know exactly to what product, what part of the product it applies. You know, imagine a PDF where you have a procedure, in the middle of the procedure, you have something that says, and for this version of the product, don't do this, but do that. It's like an exception to the procedure for one product or one product version. That's typically the sort of thing that the LLM would miss, because the way you chunk content would be missed when instructed by the LLM, and that then could lead to bad replies, as opposed to having structured content where we have the granularity of the content, we have the metadata, we have the semantics, because if you write data, we have the data attributes that say that this is for this version or not that version, and all these things that we can use dynamically when we feed the LLM to make sure we feed the LLM with the right content, only the content, and the content that is applicable. So there's a huge edge. I will tell you something. If you don't know why you had invested in data, now you know. You thought it was for reuse. No, it's wrong. You thought it was for reducing your translation cost, maybe a bit, but it's nothing compared to the value you will gain having structured content for feeding AI use cases. You'll see it's amazing. So be happy to have structured content, because that makes a difference with AI. Thank you, John. Can data XML tag be used to input clues? Yes. Well, the question is, can data XML tags be used as input clues to formal AI training? Depends what you call formal AI training. If you call training an LLM, like fine tuning or really training an LLM, yes, you can. But again, don't do it. You can try. You get back to me when you have tried. Don't try to train an LLM. But yes, still, well, I will interpret training as dynamically training the LLM when querying the LLM with RAG, which is called in-context learning, which is, can we feed the LLM dynamically with the knowledge, leveraging the tags and the structure? The answer is yes, which connects to the previous question of, do we have an edge with structured content versus unstructured content? Yes, because that's the idea, using the tags, using the metadata dynamically to instruct the LLM in a better way when you query the LLM. So the answer is yes. Do you have a sense of when level 100 could be reached? 2 years, not before that. I mean, it's agentic. It's an agentic process, multi-LLMs, and probably at least us and many people will try to concentrate first on making level 10 perfect before getting to level 100, even though we work on that in parallel. But again, making different LLMs work together, write the functions. It's going to be pilots and POCs for the moment, for the next month or so. So I wouldn't expect to make level 100 achievable before end of 2026. I'm talking production grade, not pilot inside your company with no security rules, everything. So yeah. Is it possible to train an LLM with your own documents and with a database with the metadata of those documents in order to give new documents and extract the metadata for that new documents? Oh my God. Okay, I don't know if I'm wrong, David, you tell me. I interpret your question, and can we use LLMs for like training an LLM to generate metadata and then take untagged content? So you have tagged content, you show it to an LLM and you say, this is untagged content. Can you tag this content based on what you've seen here? Okay, it's like, can you use GenAI for that? The answer is yes, it's very good at that. There are many ways to do it. You can be few shot learning, can be typically where you could train a small LLM for that. That's one of the rare use cases, and thank you for the question. I said don't train an LLM, at least if you want to, you need an LLM for generating language, okay? Because that becomes, you ruin the LLM. But that makes sense, training LLM for this sort of use cases like entity extraction, content tagging. This is typically where you would use an LLM, because typically you don't need the decoder part of the LLM, which is the language generation. You just need the encoder part of the LLM. Encoding and decoding in LLMs are two aspects technically. And everything that comes to, that is about extracting entity, classification, you can train small LLMs quite efficiently, especially because they are just encoders. So that works well. Yeah, you can do that. So either training or dynamically using few-shot learning, for example. Are you aware of any success in content personalization using GenAI? Huh. I like this. Example, the ability for the reader to ask for a generic topic, a generic doc, and that generic documentation is rewritten to emphasize the particular use case. Like, this is the procedure, but my product is a bit different, or this is my problem, this is the knowledge, I'm a bit different. Can you adapt that to me dynamically? Wow, I would say yes. Theoretically, yes. It's a matter of how to write the prompt. I mean, we are typically where it's about transforming content, so level 1. And what can be achieved is pretty much about the prompt that you write. So if you have more specific use cases in mind, it's worth trying. I like the idea, but it's all about the prompt. So yes, answer is yes, but try it. Should be good. And David said thanks. So I guess I replied correctly to training LLM for tagging content, automatically tagging content. So yes, you can do that, and that's one of the rare use cases where you can train an LLM. Yes, try. Do we have more questions? No, I think we're good. It's already a quarter past the hour. So probably we're going to stop here unless there are more questions. I give you a few minutes more, but I guess you have other meetings. You have to jump elsewhere. So anyways, thank you for having attending. I hope you liked it. I hope that was informative, that you learned something, or that gave you ideas on what can be achieved. I said, David says, keen to try it. Yes, please try it and reach back to me and tell me how it works. Adapting content on the fly, so to specific use cases for a user. So thank you again, Trish. Thank you very much for having me here.
Thanks for joining us on another CIDM webinar, and look forward to our next one.
So do I. And again, I'll be back with more GenAI, but not use cases, but validation from the field. So I'm trying to have our customers try it, pushing our customers to try, spend time, because it takes time to try. That's the problem. It takes a lot of time, a lot of energy. You need to dedicate resources to that, but I'm trying to have customers use the technology, try it, write up prompts, imagine do sort of use cases, as David said, like adapt to a specific use case on the fly, and then give us sort of, yes, it works, from 1 to 10 scale, how good is it? Can you go blindly? What is your feedback from that? Beyond what we've tried, what I've shown you here, which again is something we've tried, but we are more on the theoretical side of it, even though we made it real. But we need feedback from the real world. That's what we're working on right now. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.